Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Monday. It is Monday. I'm a little nervous about the subject for this week, and yes, I said this week. Even Self-Care Wednesday will kind of be turned into this. September is Suicide Prevention Month. Now, in my personal opinion, Suicide Prevention Month should be every day, just like pretty much every cause, right? Every cause has a month. Sometimes they double up on months, and there's other stuff happening this month for September. But for all intents and purposes, every day we should be paying attention to the signs, the risk factors, what to do, what to know. I said on Thursday, I was going to say Friday, that I would find some numbers for people to call, but for some reason I cannot. So I'm still looking into that, okay? Because a lot of them, I don't know how to test them. So if you are in crisis, or if you believe someone's in crisis, or you're someone who struggles with their mental health, please, please, please Google these numbers for wherever it is that you live, okay? Now, I'm not 100% sure this is Canada also, but when I looked up Canada, which is our neighbor to the north, it said this. So in the United States, you can dial 911, which is our emergency number. Wherever you live, dial your emergency number if you are in crisis, and they may be able to direct you to a line if there is one. But also here in the United States, and I believe Canada, I'm not 100% sure, 988 will put you directly through to the crisis line. If you are a veteran, dial 988, and then I believe press 1, and that'll put you through to the Veterans Crisis Hotline. So I broke down the subjects for the week, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a little nervous about it because I'm going to be sharing some of my own personal experiences and on both sides. And also, I'm not nervous about that. I'm nervous about the subject matter itself because it is such a fragile topic that I want to get it right, or at least give it the proper, whatever that I'm trying to say that it is. This is how you can tell I'm nervous. I'm losing all my thoughts. So let me take a deep breath. All right. So today I'm going to talk about Suicide Prevention Week, a couple of memes I found, a couple of stats, a little bit about suicide itself, and just know from here on out there is a trigger alert, okay? Because I don't want anyone to be afraid. If you are worried about your mental health, do your best to stick with me. If you can't, that's okay. Find help. Reach out for help. I cannot stress that enough. I'm going to be stressing that every time I talk about depression or anything that is under that particular umbrella. I am going to stress getting professional help, making sure you have a wonderful support system, and most of all, breaking the stigma, stopping the stigma, ending the stigma, whichever hashtag you want to use. All right. So today I'm going to talk about that. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about the risk factors of suicide, and a lot of these that I looked up, they're all from medical professional sites. So one of them is the CDC. That's the numbers I'm going to talk about in a second. The National Institute for Mental Health. That will be what is suicide, what are the risk factors, and what are the warning signs. Also the Cleveland Clinic.org and Foundation. Oh, then I found something online that was just online. So tomorrow's risk factors of suicide. Wednesday is warning signs of suicide. Thursday is going to be, I'm going to talk about CPTSD, PTSD, veterans' mental health, and chronic pain. Now, and how all of those kind of can tie in to suicide. And yes, you heard me, I said chronic pain. So I know, living with my sister has RSD, which I think they've changed the name now because there's something else called RSD, which I can't remember. So it's more commonly known now as CRPS, which is chronic regional pain syndrome. And that's like what I called it, the Mac Daddy of all the chronic pains. It is the grandfather, the ultimate, and it's not to lessen anything like fibromyalgia or other chronic pains. This one is just kind of the one that's on steroids. It's kind of that asshole of all of them, and I mean, they're all pretty jerky, to be honest. So like I said, I'm not trying to dismiss it. I'm trying to make a point with one of the worst ones because I have a sibling that has it. And so it's something I can talk to. It's something I can understand from, a caregiver's type of perspective. I mean, she's pretty good at taking care of herself. So, but it is hard to watch somebody go through any of this, even fibromyalgia, which is also a very more common form of chronic pain. So anyways, these are the things I want to talk about. My disclaimer is I am not a mental health professional. I am not a doctor. I am just here sharing a perspective. Okay, I am sharing my perspective on a lot of these different things. I'm going to be coming from a place of knowing what it can feel like, not necessarily the last step, but also as a person who has lost people to this terrible, occurrence. So let's jump in. All right. One of the memes I saw, one of the first ones, a friend of mine posted this. So it says September is Suicide Prevention Month. And it says, thinking of those who are fighting suicidal thoughts. That can also be considered suicidal ideation is a type of, but they're fighting suicidal thoughts, have lost someone to suicide, have attempted, love someone who is suicidal, have no support system, are afraid to speak up. These are all wonderful, wonderful things to really, and I don't mean wonderful like woo, but I mean, they're good things to know because, people who are suicidal, they may not know that they're loved. They may not feel loved. When I've been talking over the years of doing this show, when I've talked about my mental health, I said there are times when you can feel alone in a crowded room. And, because you don't feel loved, you don't feel seen, you don't feel heard. Even though people are trying to hear you, it's just your brain takes over and it just kind of shuts off your I don't want to say your physical hearing, but the spiritual hearing, right? Where your heart is trying to tell you, listen to the people around you, listen, or speak up or ask them for help or whatever. And you're just kind of like, no, nobody cares. So I see you. Okay. I see you. Fighting suicidal thoughts. Suicidal ideation is one of the things I want to talk about. And, I don't think I had it down for today. Actually, I think I put it on my, I wrote it out somewhere, but suicide is a major, so this is from the National Institute of Mental Health. Suicide is a major public health concern. In 2021, suicide was the 11th leading cause of death overall in the U.S., claiming the lives of over 48,100 people. Suicide is complicated and tragic, but it is often preventable. Knowing the warning signs for suicide and how to get help can help save lives. So that's a huge thing, okay? Now, I know a lot of people who aren't, I don't want to use the term educated because sometimes that can sound really condescending, and that's not where I want to go with this. But people who aren't, educated in mental health issues, who aren't understanding or who aren't willing to understand the mental health aspect of the whole umbrella. I mean, there are so many different spokes in the mental health umbrella that, I mean, it's probably several umbrellas, okay? Because it's a lot. But trying to understand that can be difficult for people. And, I think one of the reasons I was struggling with this is, I'm going to have to go back into my past and talk about some things that could have really led me down the wrong road. And fortunately it didn't. Okay. So going way back to, my 20s, I didn't realize that even in my teens, I had depression. Now, I went through stuff and we're going to talk about that later in the week, but I struggle with this part because I've really kind of made peace with the early part of my relationship with my mom. My mom was of a different era. All right. I mean, she tried. And my mom was one of those that it's like, you have to be strong. You have to be stronger than your thoughts. You have to, and there was no really honoring the feelings. It was more like, poof, make them go away. But when you push things down, things come back up. And that's where we differed, because I would push things down because I wasn't dealing with them, and they would manifest physically. And how they would manifest physically is I could just be walking somewhere, and usually in the privacy of my own home, and all of a sudden, bam, I'd punch a wall for no other reason, or I'd hit a desk, or I would just get these weird, like, ticks, like where I shake or make these weird throaty sounds. And that still happens from time to time, and I'm still trying to figure out what triggers that, even at my age. And I say my age because it's like this has been years that this has been happening, and I still don't know what causes it. And so I do get these, but I don't get them often. But I always get them, and when I kind of think I figured it out, they go away for a little bit, but then something else happens. So I always kind of feel like, since I'm not punching walls anymore, that maybe it's just amplified because it's something trying to come out. But that's how it would manifest. Or I would just turn around and just unleash on whoever was in front of me, because that was what the pain was doing. And you've heard me refer to it before as Mount Shelsuvius, and that went on for a long time. Sibling actually helped me through all of that, but therapy also helped me through that. And for me, because I do have a chemical imbalance coupled with the fact that I have other stuff that had happened, I am on medication. So I do take a pill, just one pill every day. But the funny thing is in the last part of my journey, I really, really thought, wow, I'm going to get off of these pills. I'm going to be okay. And I finally had to come to terms with the fact that that this is something that's probably going to be with me for the rest of my life, having to be on this medication. And I'm saying that now because one thing I've never told people is that is one of the things that sparked my last suicidal ideation. And I know maybe that's what needed to come up and out. When I had to get back on my meds, because I was off my meds for a little bit thinking, yeah, I can do this. And I started struggling again. And it became harder and harder. And then I did not want to get back on these meds, because everything I learned growing up, like you've got to push it down, you got to deal with it, you got to be strong, you got to be this, you got to be that. And in my early 20s, going back again, in my early 20s, I had gone to a therapist, and I was really excited because somebody had an answer for me. He put me on Prozac, which I absolutely do not like. If it works for you, that's great. Not my favorite. It turns me into a zombie. I don't like it. But I am actually on two different ones. I use Celexa, and then, you know what? I can't remember the other one, but I switch back and forth. So I'm not on both of them at the same time. But my doctor and I have it worked out that when one doesn't feel like it's working anymore, we wean me off of that one, put me on the other one. And so that way my body doesn't, get overly used to it. So I do switch back and forth to very similar drugs, but because they're different, my body doesn't say, oh, we're used to this, so no way. And I don't feel like I need to up my meds. In fact, my doctor upped my meds, but it turns out I didn't need to after all. But anyway, sorry. This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying I'm all over the place and rambling, because I'm very, very nervous about this whole subject the whole week. Hopefully it gets a little easier. But circling back, I really think I'm trying to ignore this because I don't want to shine a bad light on my mom. I love my mom. I miss my mom every day. We had some issues, that every parent and child has in their life. But I finally found a therapist who helped me make sense of what I'd been through, why I was angry, why I was hurting. And I started talking to my mom about it in front of some family because I wasn't ashamed. I was just so excited to know. And then all of a sudden it's like, we don't talk about those things in public. We don't talk. And I'm like, we're not in public. We're at the house. Well, we don't talk about those things in front of other people, including family. And I'm all like, okay. I was 22. Actually, I was 23. Sorry, I was 23 when, and pleasing my mom was a big thing when I was younger. And so I figured, well, okay, if she says that I can do it on my own, I can do it on my own. But I couldn't. And it would take me almost 2 decades to really, really acknowledge that I couldn't. And it took me 2.5 decades to realize that I don't need to be ashamed. Okay, so it wasn't until my early to mid 40s that all of this really started falling into place. Now, my dad did ask me, well, why didn't you say something to me? And I'm all like, Mom told me not to. There was a lot of that. Mom told me not to. And I think it's because my dad would try to understand it. And my mom just wanted it swept under the rug. For whatever reason, she wanted it swept under the rug. I think it wasn't so much that she was ashamed. I think she was worried for me. And I see that now, that I think there was this panic that because we didn't talk about mental health back in the 90s. We talked about it a little bit. We would talk about people who went to therapy. We talk about, and there was a whole stigma on that, and people being made fun of, or people making jokes about it. And it wasn't a funny thing. But I think a lot of people didn't realize how to deal with it. And we had to deal with the fact that going to therapists back then, not all insurances would cover it. So it was expensive. It was really expensive. So a lot of people didn't get help because people didn't put that focus on mental health. And it was the focus that needed to be put on mental health. And so I think when my mom heard the word depression, I think she just automatically thought I was going to off myself. And I'm sorry if I use some terms that might feel offensive to some, but these were my feelings. These were how I was thinking in that time. Or actually, not even in that time. In that time, I was kind of like, oh, well, if Mom says I can do it, then, I can do it. But I know, and you're thinking, but you were an adult. Yeah, I was an adult. I'm still an adult. For the most part. But I see now, when I go back and think about that I think she was scared for me. I think she was afraid of losing me. When I was 3, I had heart surgery. My mom talked about how difficult it was seeing me with all those wires post-surgery. And I think that always just kind of stuck in the back of her head. I cannot let my baby die. And I feel like if she thought I would move away from the thought, that it would go away. But it did not. And it festered, and it built, and it built, and it built, and it built. I really badly started emotionally eating to fill that void. Just a lot of bad habits were created out of that time. And a lot of bad habits that I'm still dealing with and trying to unlearn and relearn the proper way to deal with things. So when I talked about what I looked up on the CDC, in 2021, 48,100 people in the United States alone died from suicide. 2 years later, 49,315, which is 1,215 people more, died from suicide. So in just 2 years, that number had increased. Not by a lot, I know. But imagine, that's almost 50,000 people in the United States alone. What about the rest of the world? I know that in Asia, mental health is still very stigmatized. Now, being half Asian, I kind of get that. I did not have traditional Asian parents in the sense that my mom was second generation American. So, my grandmother was born in Hawaii. My mother was born in Hawaii. Both when it was just a territory, actually. But I know other people. We don't talk about it. We don't deal with it. It's kind of blasphemy in a way. So, you don't think about it. You don't talk about it. You just kind of deal with it, right? So, speaking to that, I think what I want to kind of express over the next couple of days, I do not know if there'll be an Aloha Oracle Friday. I may move it. But actually, no, because I think on Friday we'll need a break. I think we'll need that break. So if I don't get through everything on Thursday that I want to talk about, I will shift it to next week until we cover all these subjects, because I want to give all these subjects enough time and the proper amount of time to be talked about, because it is important. I have lost family members to suicide. I have lost a friend and coworker to suicide. I have looked suicide in the face and come this close, several times. I'm going to share this again for people that don't know the story. When I was in high school, I was very shy in high school. Or I was very shy, period. But I had gone through kindergarten through 8th grade with the same people pretty much all those years. And then all of a sudden I was going off to a high school where I knew nobody, absolutely nobody. And it took me a long time to make friends. In fact, my love of the supernatural really kind of came from 9th grade, sitting in the library, reading everything I could during lunch on ghosts and vampires and werewolves and all this stuff. You know, people's just stories and ghost stories from, you know, true ghost stories. I say true because I believe in ghosts, but I know not everybody else does. So anyway, take it as you will. But that's where I spent my lunches, you know, for the first good part of the year. And my friend Troy, bestie, bro from another Mo, really always kept trying to get me to have lunch. Hey, come have lunch. But I was always so shy. It's like, no, thank you, but I appreciate it. And slowly I started making friends. And then I kind of hit my stride right around the middle of the year. And I started having people to hang out with, you know, and talk with and go, you know, off campus with. Because at the time campus was open. I don't know about it, if it still is. But then we moved. We moved in my sophomore year. And not only did we moved and I started school a little late. So about a week or two late. So school's already in full swing and I'm back at square one. And I just, you know, I didn't have a handle on depression, which I'm going to say back then I had. But like I said, nobody talked about it back then, you know, in the late 80s and early 90s. So it was kind of just something that was swept under the rug that, you know, unless you saw it in the movies where it was super stigmatized or you heard somebody else talking about it, you probably didn't think you had it. And by my second month of school or third month of school, I hit bottom, and I hit bottom hard. And for the first time in my life, I was just so down. I felt so lost. And I went to the kitchen drawer and I grabbed a knife. And it wasn't a big one, probably wouldn't have done much damage, but when you're 15 years old, it doesn't matter. All right. And I had it right up to my wrist. And I was crying and I was just, I don't want to say hysterical, but I was tired. You know, I mean, by the time I was 15, I'd been through a lot in my life. My parents never knew any of this either. So, you know, of anything I'd been through or even about what was happening this day or how I was feeling, because I really kind of kept it to myself. I was a fake it till you make it kind of person. And all of a sudden the phone rang. And these are the days when we had answering machines. I don't mean an answering service or, you know, electronic voicemail on your phone where you dial it and it's somewhere else. I mean, this is the answering machines where when it goes off, everybody can hear who's leaving a message. Everybody could hear what's happening if you're in the house. But the answering machine never picked up. And I'm like, what the hell? And so the phone just kept ringing. Now, if any of you who are old enough to remember the wall phones or even just a phone, they're freaking loud. And when you're kind of in this weird, strange place, like when I'm super, super stressed, anything high pitched or super noisy, it just kind of, it's cringe to me. It is super cringy to me. And I just, ugh. And so finally, I was just so mad. I threw the knife back into the drawer and I answered the phone. It's like, hello. And I was worried because at first I thought, oh crap, if it's my mom, I'm in so much trouble answering the phone. I mean, not really, but it'd be like, what's wrong? And then I'd have to say, right? And it was Troy, bro from another Mo. And I just felt like picking up the phone and calling and checking on you. Kid you not. And in that moment, he could hear something was wrong. And I let everything out. I just sobbed. I sobbed. And he didn't say a lot that I can remember. But one thing I do remember is he's like, well, you know what? I'm going to call you every day after school just to see how you're doing. Okay. He saved my life that day. And one of the things that I found interesting is that afterwards I went to the bathroom to wipe my eyes and kind of, clean up my face. And the phone rang again. But, our phone was like, you had like 3 rings, I think, before the answering machine would pick up. And it rang 3 times and the machine picked up. I kid you not. But during that time, I knew somebody was trying to tell me it's not your time. Just like when I had heart surgery and I felt that whole out-of-body experience, say what you will, somebody told me it's not your time. And so I took that as a sign. And it got me through. He got me through. And eventually our calls turned into once a week, as I started to progress and made new friends. And, we never lost touch. And obviously we're still in touch. It's been 37 years this year that we met, so, or this month that we met. So I'm gonna have to wish him happy anniversary. We always joke about that because he never gets the year right, despite the fact that I'm 2 years or 2 months older than him. He still can't get the year right. But it was so long ago. However, there were other times. And I remember another time where not quite the last time, but I remember I hit bottom again. And again, I wasn't seeking help. I thought I was strong enough to handle this. I had to prove I was strong enough to handle this. Sibling was out at a job interview. Neither of my parents were picking up. Troy wasn't picking up, and this is right either as I was turning 30 or right around 30. And it had nothing to do with my age, okay? Because, I celebrate every 0 year like it is the last day of my life, because it is, they're awesome. But I think it was the holidays, and, I was lonely, I was sad, I felt very unaccomplished, I felt like all these people around me are doing all this stuff, and I'm worthless. Because I wasn't getting the help I needed to deal with the stuff that was on the inside from long, long ago. Whatever the things that happened to me when I was young, and again, we'll talk about that later this week, they rooted themselves and started growing really nasty, choking weeds within me. And so I filled a glass with Pepsi. I'm not a Pepsi fan, so I think that was my punishment, right? And then I poured, older sibling's mom had recently passed away, so the doctor gave her some anti-anxiety pills, or what are they called? Tranquilizers. I poured the whole bottle in. It didn't matter that it was not mine, okay? I was just kind of like, nope, got to do this. And I was going to drink it. But I think something inside me knew. I mean, the suicidal ideation came this close to being a reality. Again, from the knife to the other time, which it's kind of hazy, so, but this one, and this time, and all of a sudden, while I was sitting there, and you can take this as you will, but I absolutely 100% know what it was. Nobody was answering. I was, again, sobbing my eyes out. I felt, okay, this is a sign. Nobody's answering. It's time to do this. I picked up that glass. I had it to my lips. And all of a sudden, I had a scent of cotton candy. Not from the Pepsi, not from anything else. In fact, I put it down. And I kind of, cleared my senses because I was kind of shocked. But then I got this really cold feeling just on my right side. Now, mind you, I was sitting in sibling's mom's favorite chair. All right. It was the chair sibling bought for her. We still have this chair in the house. And I felt this, but the cotton candy smell got even heavier. And all of a sudden I had a sense of calm. And I knew it was Mom Barbara. Now, again, I know I'm not trying to reach into the woo-woo towards people going, oh my God, blah, blah. But whether you believe or not, know that something occurred in that moment that kept me from doing the worst. Because I kid you not, after that, the home phone rang. And, what happened was when I smelled that smell and I had that overwhelming sense of peace, like everything's going to be okay. I got up, I poured that shit out into the sink, washed out the cup because I didn't even want remnants of it. I sat back down, the smell had gone, the cold spot had gone, and all of a sudden my cell phone starts ringing, and it's my mom, but the house phone starts ringing, and I picked up the house phone, and it's sibling, and she's like, what's wrong? Are you okay? Blah, blah, I got your message. I'm sorry, I was in my interview. And all 4 people called back within 10 minutes. Now my parents worked on the same university, but they did not work in the same building. And so, I found out later that it's like, oh yeah, we didn't even realize you called us both. But the point is something stopped me that day. And then, in the last 5 or 6 years, the suicidal ideation had been horrible in my life. I mean, it had been horrible. But then, recently, one day, I'm going to finish it with this thought, okay? I had that thought, that intrusive, I don't want to be alive. Why am I still here? Nobody needs me. I had that intrusive thought sneak in within the last, actually, sometime between, I think, January and March. And all of a sudden, I heard myself say, I don't know who's trying to put this in my head, but get the fuck out, because that is not my thought. Now, I know it was me, but I had to turn it into something that I could say something to protect myself. And in that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, I've just hit a new pinnacle. I've just gotten to a new place in my mental health journey, because I heard the intrusive voice and I turned it away. I said, I don't think so. And I know that if I can do it, having come that close, I know for people who have tried it and have not succeeded. Older sibling lets me talk about this. She said both times she woke up thinking that she was a failure. And in my personal opinion, I get it. I get why you would feel that way, because you're at the lowest point of your life. You're just feeling horrible. You're feeling shitty. You're feeling like you don't belong on the planet. And then all of a sudden you can't do this right? No, I think it's a miracle. And a lot of people that have gone through those things, they have turned it around and helped other people with it. They have shown other people, look, I came this close. I looked death straight in the face. I stared it in the face. I stared it down. And I said, no. And it said, sorry, not today. And they turn it around and say, if I can do it, you can do it. And I know people will think, well, suicidal ideation is not the same as, actually performing the act. No, it's not. But it happens a lot. And here's the scary part. That can be the bridge to it happening. Because twice I came close. The third time, that's the story I told a couple of weeks ago, where I said I got outdone by a fitted sheet and I just lost everything, and I just sat there and cried, and I went downstairs and I told sibling, because I told her when I walked in the house, I said, don't try to stop me, I'm doing this, blah blah blah. And then, like I said, I tried to take my mind off of it. The fitted sheet, you know how fitted sheets are, and my bed's up against a wall, so it's a pain in my ass. But I'm not laughing because that's funny. I'm laughing because of the fact that I got beaten by a fitted sheet. But in that moment, what that sheet symbolized is that this is how I felt about my life. But you know what? I got the sheet on eventually. Because all we have to do is move over that thought, or move through it. You gotta go through it to grow through it, right? You gotta go through it to grow through it. You gotta feel it to heal it. And I realized in that moment that while I'm sitting there with my face down in the bed, just crying again, and this is not that long ago, it was only a couple years ago, I realized, you know what? I was mad. I came in and I went downstairs, and all I did was ask sibling for a hug. I didn't ask her to say anything. I didn't ask to talk. I just knew that I was on that line. I was on that line of crossing into a place of potential no return, or taking that and moving forward with it and saying, hey, how can I make this so this doesn't become a thing? Because this is not who I want to be. Now, it's not like people choose these things. Okay. One of the things I want to talk about this week, and that I'm going to cover now, when we see things like this happen on TV, right? I mean, I'll take Shawshank Redemption, for example. The warden was a dick. The warden was always, he was bad. And so, he took what people will call the easy way out, right? Now, I think a lot of people think that's what suicide is. He didn't want to go to jail, so he took the easy way out. I have known people in my very distant past, a distant relative, who did the same thing. They got themselves into trouble, and then they, as people say now, unalived himself. But it's so much more than that. And when you only focus on what people do because they're afraid of whatever they're going to go through, we miss the whole point of the people who are actually struggling with their mental health, who are struggling in that pain. They're not trying to run from something. They're in pain. You'll see it, suicide by cop, right? Where people will just try to get the police to shoot them because they can't do it themselves. Sibling and I were watching this one show yesterday, with just like kind of dumb drivers, right? And somebody, one guy pulled a U-turn on the freeway, but he didn't go all the way around. He stopped right in front of two big rigs. I'm assuming this person did not live. But the first thing she said was, oh, they were trying to, well, basically unalive themselves, which is all. They just, they didn't know how else to do it, so they did it that way. And I don't think it's wrong, because the side that they were hit on was the driver's side. So there's a lot of different things that go through a lot of people's heads, and a lot of it can be fear of something bad happening. A lot of it can be, this feels like the end. I've failed at something else. I've done this, that, or the other. I'm not taking away from the people that do something bad and then unalive themselves. I'm trying to explain that it's not just that, because mental health can possibly be a part of that. But it's been so glorified as being the easy way out in TV and movies that we've missed the mental health aspect of all of this. We've missed the mental health aspect of all of this. And don't even get me started with some of these school shootings, right? Where or people who with mass shootings, they go out and kill people and then they kill themselves. It's like, why? Why do you gotta take out a bunch of people and then yourself? Okay, and I have some very controversial thoughts on that, because my first thought is, if you're really intent on doing this, why you gotta take everybody else out? Here I am trying to save lives, but also I don't appreciate when people are killed because somebody else doesn't have control. It's not fair to those innocent people. So we need to pay better attention to people with mental health issues. We need to pay closer attention. We need to know the warning signs, and the only way to learn them is to know them. So that is my hope for this week, that somehow I get it out there, okay? Now, just so you know, starting tonight, I think at 4:30, 4:30 Pacific time, but 7:30 Eastern, because my friend is in Canada. So 7:30 Eastern, my friend Jody, her starting a new 13, go to her site on Twitter. She holds a live space, and I believe they're going to be talking about suicide prevention this week, and it is an open, safe place for people to talk. Okay, talk, listen, learn. And as for me, I hope to see everybody back here this week. We're gonna go over the rest of this, and we're gonna take it slowly, and we're gonna talk about it. I'm gonna share some of my experiences. I may or may not share it more than once. I don't know. It just depends on how it works. But this is stuff we need to know. This is stuff we need to know. Even if you think you may never use it, you never know. Okay? I'm gonna finish it with this wonderful, wonderful story that could have been very, very tragic. I was watching just a newsreel, or when people do nice things, and there was this one man in I don't know if it was Asia or Europe, but there was a man standing on the other side of the bridge, and I think it was Asia, because I believe this bridge had become known as a suicide bridge. But he just held on to him. There was another man in Britain, and these two actually met later, I believe. But this is some time back. It's within this millennia, but it was some time back, like a few years back. And this man saw this other man on the other side of the bridge, ready to jump on the train tracks. And I think he was waiting for a train, and I believe it was a train tracks. But he just held him. He put his arm around him and held him, and got other people to help hold him, and have somebody else call, the police to help him. But he tried to talk to him, and he's just like, "I'm here for you. I'm not letting go. I'm not going to let you do this." And they met later, and that person had actually, because of that moment and because of somebody showing they cared, turned their life around, like big time. I believe they help advocate now to help people to not go down that road again. So this is what we can do for one another. This is what we have to do to help one another. All right. Like I said, even if you never need these tools, it's better to have them than to not have them. Okay, and again, let's end the stigma of mental health. If we end the stigma and we get people the proper help that they need, we have a chance of lowering these numbers around the world. Like I said, 48,000, people in a country of, I think, what do we have, like about 400,000, 300 something thousand people, 400 something thousand people. It may not seem like a lot. It may just seem like a drop in the pond, right? But it's huge, because those are 48,000, 49,000, almost 50,000 people whose families are affected, who will no longer be here for the holidays, who will no longer, celebrate with their families, and, their families holding these like, well, what could I have done? Is there anything I could have done? And some of them feel guilty. And then there's other people that realize there was nothing I could have done, because sometimes there's not. Sometimes there is just nothing we can do. And when it happens in those types of cases, I just pray that they found the peace they were looking for. But if we can get people to a place where they can find peace while still here, let's do our best. All right. And let's not stigmatize the people who do unalive themselves. I'm just going to use that because I feel like it's the less triggering way to say it. It sounds, I know for some people it'll sound weird. It sounded weird the first time I heard it, but I don't want to trigger anyone. So the effort we can put into keeping people on this side of the veil, let's do what we can. All right. So let's end the stigma. Have a great day.